If you're enjoying the stories of the past and the legends that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a new episode from Echoes of Empire. In the 7th century of our era, when the world seemed divided by deserts, mountains, and seas, there existed a network of roads and caravan paths that stitched continents together. It stretched from the cities of China to the shores of the Mediterranean. It crossed empires, climates, and cultures. Some traveled it for wealth, some for faith, some for knowledge, but all who walked it became part of something larger than themselves. This world was the Silk Road, and during the Tang Dynasty, it reached a golden age unmatched in its history. To understand the Silk Road in this era, we must begin in the imperial capital of Chang'an. It was the largest city on earth, a metropolis of grand avenues and towering gates, where merchants from distant lands gathered beneath the shadow of imperial palaces. The city embodied the spirit of the Tang Dynasty, a spirit built on openness, curiosity, and confidence. From its markets came the sound of dozens of languages. From its streets came the sight of many religions. From its walls came the hum of a civilization at its peak. Chang'an was a world within a world. Its night markets overflowed with spices from India, gems from Central Asia, glassware from Persia, gold from the steppe, and silks that shimmered like water under sunlight. Lanterns hung above the crowds, giving the impression that stars had descended onto the earth. Musicians from the West played lutes and harps unlike any native to China. Dancers from Sogdiana performed with movements that blended Central Asian grace and Chinese elegance. Scholars debated philosophy beneath the glow of firelight. At the city's center stood the imperial court, where the emperor governed an empire of unimaginable reach. Yet the Silk Road was far more than trade. It was a river of ideas. From India came Buddhism, carried by monks and scholars who walked across deserts and mountain passes to reach the imperial capital. They brought sutras written in Sanskrit and stories of distant kingdoms. Chinese translators labored for years to convert these texts, giving them new life. Monasteries rose across the empire, each one a center of learning and art. The faith evolved, absorbing Chinese spirit and philosophy. It created temples with curved roofs and golden statues, paintings detailed with peaceful expressions, and scriptures that blended foreign wisdom with native ideals. From Persia and Central Asia came new religious traditions. Zoroastrians built fire temples in Chang'an. Nestorian Christians erected churches and carved stone tablets that blended Chinese characters with Syriac script. Manichaeans introduced a mystical dualist faith that captured the imagination of scholars. Taoists and Confucianists studied these beliefs, comparing them with their own traditions. In this way, China became a crossroads of the divine, a place where beliefs from across the world mingled. But the exchange traveled both ways. Chinese ideas and inventions flowed westward with equal force. Paper, which had been perfected centuries earlier, moved along caravan routes into Central Asia. There it met the curiosity of Persian and Arab scholars. The technique spread slowly but surely, replacing older methods of writing. In time, paper would change the Islamic world and eventually reshape Europe. It was light, flexible, and inexpensive, ideal for recording ideas. The Silk Road did not only carry goods and knowledge, it carried music, it carried fashion, it carried art. The Tang court adopted foreign clothing styles, wearing robes inspired by Persian designs. Noble women rode horses like Sogdian aristocrats. New instruments, such as the pipa and congo, evolved from foreign prototypes carried along the road. Painters depicted foreign merchants with careful detail, celebrating the diversity that enriched their world. At the same time, foreign artisans brought new techniques to China. Glassmakers from Sogdia introduced new colors and methods. Jewelers from Persia shaped intricate metalwork. The mixture of Chinese and foreign artisans created unique art forms, blending styles that would have seemed impossible in earlier ages. Yet while Chang'an stood as the shining heart of this world, the Silk Road truly lived in the lands beyond its walls. It followed the Gansu Corridor, a narrow ribbon of fertile land between deserts and mountains. It passed through garrisons, outposts, and watchtowers built to protect travelers. It reached Dunhuang, the last major city before the vast Taklamakan Desert. where Buddhist caves were carved into cliffs and painted with vibrant murals. These caves became a testament to cultural exchange, decorated with Indian legends, Chinese saints, Central Asian angels, and Persian motifs. They were history preserved in art. From Dunhuang, caravans would split into two paths. One skirted the northern edge of the desert, passing oasis towns like Turpan and Kucha. The other traveled south, moving through hot sands and cold nights toward distant kingdoms. Both paths led travelers to Central Asia, a region of city-states built from trade. Samarkand and Bukhara thrived in this era, enriched by merchants from east and west. These cities became centers of philosophy, science, and astronomy. There Chinese paper met Persian ink, Buddhist stories met Zoroastrian traditions. Knowledge was traded like goods. The cultural exchange did not end with religion or art. Even food traveled along these roads. Grapes, figs, and pomegranates became beloved across China. Chinese teas and spices enriched Persian and Arab cuisine. The Tang elite adopted dishes from Central Asia, incorporating new flavors into their banquets. Recipes traveled quietly but powerfully, reshaping diets across continents. But while trade thrived, the Silk Road was not safe. It crossed deserts where sandstorms could bury caravans within minutes. It passed mountains where snow blocked paths for months. Bandits lurked in hidden valleys. Tribal conflicts could erupt without warning. To protect their merchants, the Tang emperors extended Chinese influence deep into Central Asia. They built fortresses. They stationed soldiers. They forged alliances with local tribes. For a century, Chinese banners flew far beyond the empire's natural borders. This outward presence brought more than security. It brought new ideas. Chinese generals and governors in these regions observed foreign customs. They learned the languages of Sogdians, Turks, and Tibetans. Scholars exchanged texts. Diplomats negotiated treaties. Every interaction added a new thread to the Silk Road. By this time, China had become a cosmopolitan empire, admired and imitated across Eurasia. Its wealth, art, and science made it a beacon of civilization. Foreign emissaries came to pay tribute to the Tang court. Some brought horses from the steppe, others brought slaves, spices, or gold. The Silk Road carried these gifts as part of a vast diplomatic network. In this way, the Tang Dynasty stood not only as a political power, but as a cultural titan, shaping and being shaped by the world beyond its borders. Its influence spread across continents, reaching kingdoms that would never see its palaces, but would hear of its glory through merchants and scholars. As the 8th century dawned, the Silk Road reached the height of its golden age. Ideas, religions, inventions, and cultures mixed with a freedom rarely seen in ancient history. Yet as with all golden ages, shadows began to form. Political tensions grew, empires shifted, new powers rose in the west and north, and soon, the roots that had flourished for generations would face challenges that even the wealthy Tang dynasty could not prevent. As the 8th century reached its height, the Tang dynasty stood at the center of a world connected by desire, curiosity, and ambition. The Silk Road carried more than caravans. It carried a vision of humanity, woven together by exchange. Yet history teaches that even the most radiant eras must confront trials that test their foundation. The Silk Road, vibrant and alive, now approached an age of tension, transformation, and resilience. To understand the fragility of this great network, we must look westward, beyond the gates of Chang'an, beyond the deserts of the Tarim Basin, and into the lands where empires shifted like the tides. The roads that linked China to Persia and Byzantium were not controlled by one power. They passed through regions governed by Turks, Tibetans, Sogdians, and Arab caliphates. Each held ambitions of its own, each shaped the flow of goods and ideas, and each could disrupt it at any moment. Among these powers, the expansion of the Islamic Caliphate reshaped the Western Silk Road. The rise of the Umayyads, and later the Abbasids, created a new empire that stretched from Spain to Central Asia. This transformation did not sever the Silk Road. Instead, it redirected its currents. Arab merchants traveled east, carrying wool, metal, glass, and scientific knowledge. They returned with silk, paper, porcelain, and stories from distant lands. Baghdad, the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, became a center of learning where scholars translated Greek, Persian, and Indian texts on Chinese paper, using ink enriched by foreign formulas. The Tang world watched with interest. China and the Islamic world were not enemies in this age. They were neighbors, separated by deserts, but connected by curiosity. Diplomatic missions passed between them. Persian and Arab astronomers traveled to Chang'an. Chinese envoys observed the grandeur of Baghdad. The Silk Road became a bridge between two civilizations that each believed themselves to be the pinnacle of culture. But as new powers rose, older ones fell. The Sogdians, once the masters of Silk Road trade, found themselves caught between expanding empires. Their merchants continued to thrive, but their independence weakened. The Tibetan Empire, a rising force in the highlands, pushed aggressively into Central Asia. The Turks, skilled horsemen and traders, grew in influence, sometimes allying with China, sometimes opposing it. The map of Eurasia shifted constantly, and the Silk Road shifted with it. These changes reached deep into the Tang heartland. Within China, the prosperity of the Silk Road created new social dynamics. Wealth is concentrated in cities. Merchants gained influence. Foreign customs blended into Chinese life, sometimes embraced, sometimes resisted. Tea houses, music halls, and markets reflected a world more diverse than ever before. But such diversity also stirred suspicion among those who feared change. Confucian scholars debated whether foreign ideas diluted traditional values. Officials questioned whether the presence of foreign communities in major cities posed political risks. Yet for a time, these tensions remained controlled. The Tang court valued openness and continued to welcome foreign merchants and religions. Still, the first cracks appeared along the frontier. The empire's westernmost territories required constant defense. Garrisons in places like Kucha, Karashar, and Kashgar depended on supplies from the east. When the Tang armies fought campaigns far from home, the cost drained the treasury. Local tribes sensed opportunity. The Tibetans captured strategic points. The Turks changed alliances. What had once been a safe corridor became a contested landscape. Then came one of the most defining moments of Silk Road history. In the year 751, near the oasis of Talas, Tang forces clashed with the Abbasid Caliphate and their Turkic allies. The Battle of Talas would shape the destiny of East and West in ways neither side could have foreseen. It was a stalemate that turned into a Tang retreat. Strategically, it marked the end of Tang expansion into Central Asia. The empire had reached the limit of what it could hold. The consequences went deeper than borders. According to later histories, Chinese papermakers captured during the battle shared their craft with the Islamic world. Whether this story is literal or symbolic, the effect was real. Paper technology spread westward rapidly after this era, transforming education, administration, and science across the Middle East and later Europe. The Silk Road had shifted again. Knowledge traveled with the same persistence as caravans. While the world beyond China changed, tensions grew within the empire. The Tang court faced internal struggles, corruption spread, military governors gained power. The grandeur of Chang'an, once the jewel of the world, began to reveal cracks beneath its golden surface. The final blow came with the Anlushan rebellion. In 755, a trusted general of mixed Sogdian and Turkic heritage led a massive revolt against the Tang government. The rebellion lasted nearly 8 years and devastated the empire. Millions perished. Farmland was destroyed. Trade collapsed. The roads that once carried silk and spices now carried armies and refugees. The Silk Road did not disappear, but its golden age dimmed. China withdrew from Central Asia to stabilize its core. The frontier garrisons were abandoned. The oasis towns fell under new rulers. The network of roads fractured into smaller segments. Merchants continued to travel, but the days of grand caravans protected by Tang banners were over. Yet even in decline, the Silk Road remained a testament to the endurance of human connectivity. Ideas planted during the Tang Dynasty continued to grow. Buddhist teachings that flourished in China shaped art and philosophy for centuries. Islamic scholars expanded upon Chinese mathematics and astronomy. Paper spread westward until it became essential to every culture that touched it. Musical styles blended, artistic forms fused, recipes traveled, technologies moved silently across borders. The Silk Road had altered the world forever. By the time the Tang Dynasty fell in the early 10th century, the Silk Road was no longer a single road. It had become a memory carried by merchants, a legacy supported by countless cultures, and a symbol of exchange that defied the collapse of empires. And so, when we speak of the Silk Road during the Tang Dynasty, we do not speak merely of trade routes. We speak of a moment when the world was more connected than at almost any other time in ancient history. We speak of a civilization that opened its gates to ideas and let them flourish. We speak of caravans that carried not only goods, but stories, not only wealth, but wisdom. The Silk Road was a river of humanity, flowing through deserts, mountains, and time itself, and in the Tang Dynasty, that river shone with the light of a golden age. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, it really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a new episode from Echoes of Empire.